in the past year and a half of lockdown, we have seen sort of a rise in the amount of smart infrastructure, sensor technologies in all sorts of living situations and in cities. And this is tied to the larger Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies rollout. So now a lot of the big blockchain companies are rolling out, and it's not just about the crypto finance, it's about smart contracts. And so these contracts are not just financial contracts, but they're transactional, and that's what the blockchain is uplifted for, is that it's this decentralized encrypted ledger, but it's a permanent ledger, right? And so this idea that as we interface as living beings with smart environments, we are literally transacting with, in the future, more and more with the environment. So like in the future, we might not have a token to be able to sit on the sofa in the space, or our token may be timed that we could only sit here for 15 minutes.
Or you're not vaccinated, and so you're not allowed to enter the public schools. You're not allowed, I mean, it
Right.
will control how we are able to buy, sell, trade, move about the city, the county, the state.
Geofencing.
Yes, we will be essentially geofenced in if we do not have proof of vaccination.
Or
and proof
compliance
of
to anything.
boosters. Compliance, yeah, exactly.
To anything
It
that
could
the
be-
system claims that they need.
Yes.
And then increasingly, all of that data on your ledger is creating a digital twin of you, which is something most people are not aware of, is the interest in developing digital twins of individuals, of cities, of societies, to essentially like, I mean, they would say optimize life on this planet according to whose standards, right? In this, to turn life, organic life, into a cybernetic mechanical thing.
And we can't opt out of that once this is locked in place.
Right, there's not going to be, because most of the technology is run through satellite systems and frequency systems that are being built in, so it's not like there's even going to be anywhere to go to get away from
Because people think, oh, I can just go off the grid, I can escape, I'll just bow out of this system. But really, it's not like you can hide from this.
I don't think so. I mean, we've never had this happen. I mean, well, I would say, I guess my frame has always been around reservation systems and the dispossession of original people here, and like what that looks like. And it's interesting in terms of compliance, because one of the hotel art down in the conference area, it was the Daughters of Texas to Save the Missions, right? And so these systems of domination and compliance, like your old way of living is no longer appropriate. Now we've come up with a new way, and this is the new way that we're going to do it, and you need to agree. And so the reservation systems were a part of that. So there are historical precedents, but we've never had this level of technology, and now that is embedding with nanotechnology.
You're talking about Native American reservations.
Right.
Yeah.
Native American reservations, but in other places, enclosures. I mean, before here, that happened in Europe. So in some ways, the blockchain is sold as freedom, but in other ways, it's like an ultimate enclosure. An enclosure not just around physical assets, but even your social relations.
Mm. Yeah.
So
we just, in talking with people last night, most people don't understand the implications of blockchain because they're just thinking about it as, okay, well, you own your own data. This is an immutable, unhackable way of storing your currency, your transcripts, all of your information,
your health
Social
records,
Security, health, mental health, all of it's going to be stored on blockchain. So there are people who are they're almost in these different silos within the industry, and so they're not seeing what the potential or the unintended consequences would be. And so, we met so many nice people last night.
yeah, I mean, most people are well
intentioned.
intentioned. They just don't have the bigger picture. They haven't put all the pieces together.
They don't, and like when I was talking to one woman who is into Bitcoin mining, they've stopped what they did before, and they're focusing on this solely, and this is their sole source of income now, investing in, I think it was energy and Bitcoin mining. I was telling her about the whole issue with education, and so if we are on blockchain,
Right.
if we are traded, like Allison always says, like lettuce heads on a supply chain model. So if you think about putting children on blockchain, that's what I've been focusing on very, very heavily lately, because I've seen in Dallas how they're pushing blockchain credentials. So basically having your transcript, your diploma, your micro credentials, any of your your accomplishments all go on this blockchain wallet. So I see it as a captive market of students in public schools. So if Texas has 5.4 million children in public schools, think about that as an access point.
Right.
So I'm trying to get people to understand, what does this look like on the ground level? Because
Right.
a lot of people know the threat that's coming. They just don't know
What do we do about it?
How are they going to
Right.
impose
How do you
vaccine
stay on? Right.
passports? What's that going to look like to me as a parent? How can I stop it? You can stop it. One is through the public schools, because I do believe that that is how they're going to do it in Texas.
Right.
Is get it in through the public schools, through the Dallas Community College District. So Dallas
And the mental
colleges.
health layered into both of those.
Yes, and so with those blockchain, with this agreement with a company called 𝓌𝒽𝓃𝒾𝒸𝑒𝒸𝒁, that is how they're going to do the transcripts for high school students, the community college students, and that's a huge captive market. And then
Right.
that will grow from there. So that's an access point.
The idea that someone could be making their business model off of children's mental health data is in your public school systems is pretty unseemly, right? Especially if you don't get a choice of opting out of these systems. And then increasingly, the blockchain identity data will be tied into these human capital markets, essentially futures markets and human capital compliance to reskilling for the fourth industrial revolution, to that you have a mindset that is aligned to a human plus human machine blended worldview. And so those of us who think that that is not the choice that the road we want to go down, will be increasingly alienated and ostracized from these systems. And children cannot give consent to this. And beyond children, also nature, because all of the financialization that is happening on blockchain is also happening to trees and water, and all of the supposed green movement has been corporatized, and that they just would like to put a sensor on everything so they can track the contributions of that tree to carbon offsets on blockchain. And so blockchain is framed as liberation, but if you look, there's a video from 𝑖XO Foundation where essentially the entire world is just layered in ones and zeros as data, all locked up on blockchain. And so it's all a transparent and accountable, but it's essentially, it's remade the world into a massive computable equation. And then the question is, do we want that? Do we agree to that? Because so many people are like, well, I'll figure that out later. I'm not thinking about that now.
Yeah, a lot of people last night said that. It's like, this guy who's helped the legislation get passed, he was like, yeah, I've got grandkids, I care about, people, but I mean, what are we gonna do? It was kind of like, well, this is coming anyway, so I might as well ride the wave with it. It's like it wasn't computing with him. And I know there are unintended consequences with him.
Yeah.
It's not that he wants his grandchildren and his children
to be assets
but
on
he's
global
not
hedge
seeing
fund
that
markets.
could happen with the transcripts. He's only focusing on, this is this future that we can bring in that'll be
Right.
better, because you will own your own data and it will be decentralized and it's unhackable, which is not true. Nothing's unhackable or immutable.
Well, and the thing is too, like, the question is, do we want to live in a mixed reality where the people running the mixed reality are military, global defense and finance interests? And is that safe is that the world you want to put kids into?
Were some of the speakers tied to military and did you notice?
Well, a lot of it's connected to governments. And so, but at this point, most world governments are funded largely by corporate and defense interests and pharmaceutical interests and finance interests. So the austerity of governments means that you create these investment markets for technology and finance into that space. So no one is electing Pierre Omidyar or Alphabet to run our governments, but once we move into digital driver's licenses and blockchain augmented identity.
And all of that comes in through public-private partnerships. So they're unelected people, these billionaires that are investing in these systems. They're unelected, but the way that they do it is kind of backdoor privatization.
Right, states of exception. Well, if we approve these contracts over in this other venue, we don't have the same level of scrutiny. But it's all on blockchain, so it's all accountable. So I know, Lynn, you have to go, but I will just say, so we met with some people last night. We've been here at the conference today, sharing some literature that we've had that is a bit in the spirit of the yes man, a bit of an over-the-top.
Yes man and yes woman.
Yes women, yes moms, scrappy moms against AI. But trying to sort of trigger people to think about this future that is being built around them, because it all runs on blockchain. And the use cases that are going to be focused on now, alternative payment systems, alternative media systems, these other kinds of alternative systems, that's one, but they want you focused on that so that you're not looking at the other pieces. So,
Right. Yeah. Pretty much it.
that's where we're at. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead. Where you at?
Yeah, there you go. On the metaverse.
Thank you.
Do we want to live in the CIA's video game? Question of the day.
Question of the day.
Yeah.
Do we have an option?
Well, we can all still say no. There's still time to say no. We're hoping. That's what the moms are out here for. Yeah. All right, thanks. So when I started doing a lot of this research, I wasn't really, my eyes were not on Texas as a technology center, because so much of our focus is around Silicon Valley, or maybe like the beltway around, Cambridge and Boston, greater Boston. But there's these low-key, very powerful and influential technology sector in Texas, and it's also interfaces with the oil and energy industry. And as we move forward, there are going to be more and more connections between nanoelectronics and nanomachines, and human plus health, and piezoelectric energy. So almost like the long game is harvesting our data, both to train the singularity and also to extract energy from our tiniest movements, like nanowires on our eyelids or our throat. So when we swallow or blink, like they're capturing this minute energy out of us. So I think it's really interesting, like Texas in this space of high tech, oil. Also, Israel is a big presence. There's a lot of connections in the technology space between Texas and Israel, and policy alignments. And a big part of that is with the tech. But there's also this transhumanist element, because Israel is being looked at as one of the first transhumanist nations, and a lot in the education space is being baked in. This guy Ben Blair, who was with K-12 education, he's now doing online universities, and he's the president of the Mormon Transhumanist Association. So they're looking at our bodies as resources, both for data, for these financial things, for the singularity, and for energy. And in that way, Texas is really key. So we're on the UT Austin campus. We're in Austin, which was essentially created from the 50s to be a tech hub, and is now going to be, I think Oracle is relocating its headquarters here. It has the university, private corporate partnership, research and development, and it's the capital, right? So you've got the government, you've got the academy, and then you've got private interests, all converging around social welfare, data-driven social welfare, high-tech nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence, and then now a whole blockchain center, and how all of those interface. So over the next couple of days, we're going to be exploring different locations in Austin and highlighting how those pieces fit into this larger puzzle.